Hey, what are you doing? Open up. Huh? Why don't you just stay here for a while? I was locked in the basement by my husband's child. I tried many times to open the basement door, but it wouldn't budge. Originally, I had an accident and was in a motorized wheelchair. So, I couldn't move around well, let alone smoothly. It's cold. Well, of course, it is. The temperature right now is 28 degrees. Why are you doing this? Then, my son began to laugh loudly. I've been irritated with you for a long time. What? Acting like a mother. Maybe you'll turn into a mummy staying down here? What are you thinking? I'm going on a trip for 3 nights and 4 days. So, just hang in there until I get back. Please, let me out of here. My desperate cries did not reach my son. Only the sound of his footsteps fading away could be heard. I had no choice but to despair, being unable to do anything. 4 days passed since I was locked up, and my son returned from his trip. What the heck is this? Realizing something was terribly wrong, he hurried to the basement. A shocking scene awaited him as he cautiously looked into the basement. A grand revenge began, irrespective of the stunned son standing by. My name is Tiffany, and I currently work in sales at a cosmetics company. I got married when I was 30. What was different about this marriage was that my husband, Justin, had a child. When we decided to get married, my parents were strongly against it. Marrying someone with a child will definitely bring hardship. Your father is right. But I want to marry him. I pleaded for hours. At first, they wouldn't agree, but I didn't give up talking. And eventually, they allowed the marriage. If you're that determined, I won't stop you. Thank you. The reason I chose Justin, who had a child, was that I felt very comfortable with him. From the first time we met, we got along well because we shared the same hobbies and likes, such as outdoor activities. We met at a bar I frequently visited. By chance, we sat next to each other and ordered the same drink, which led to a casual conversation. After meeting several times, we exchanged contact information. Soon after, Justin contacted me, and we went out for a meal. And this child is? Actually, he's my son. Oh? Your son. His name is Sean, and he's 10 years old this year. I see. I was at a loss for words, not able to catch up with the conversation. Sensing this, my husband said something surprising. I brought my son today because there's a reason. What reason? I want to date you with the intention of getting married. Although I had thought about dating, I hadn't imagined marriage yet. But being told so earnestly, I gradually became happy, and eventually, we started dating. Since then, the 3 of us often went out together. It seems Sean has grown quite fond of you. I hope so. Why don't we ask him? Sean, come here for a moment. What is it, Dad? Sean, would you be happy if Tiffany became your mom? After showing a thoughtful look, he quickly smiled. I would be really happy. See? That's what he said. Yeah. I was very happy and felt a bit shy. This was about 6 months after we met. A week later, I received a formal proposal and we got married. After our marriage, the 3 of us rented a detached house. Looking up at our new home, I imagined a happy family life ahead. However, that life gradually took a strange turn. Until then, my relationship with my son had been good, but suddenly, he became cold towards me. I'm sorry, but it looks like I'll have to go on business trips more often. Business trips? For long? Well, I don't think it'll be for too long, but I might be away from home more often. My relationship with my son was good before we got married. But understandably, I felt anxious about being alone with him right after getting married. Then, one morning, after we had started spending more time together, it happened. What's wrong? Aren't you going to eat? I don't want to. After that, he wouldn't even respond when I spoke to him. Suddenly faced with this situation, I wondered if I had done something wrong and decided to consult with my husband, who had just returned from a business trip. Aren't you overthinking it? But it's so sudden. If I did something wrong, I want to apologize. But you don't remember doing anything, right? That's true, but worrying too much might just make things weirder. Yeah, I guess. That's when I realized something. My son had been taking piano lessons. Something my husband wanted for him because he had learned to play the piano as a child himself. He said it was good for the brain to work with your hands. See you next week, Aaron. Yes. See you then. Yeah. He was always smiling when it came to his piano teacher. Even looking at him recently, he seemed happiest in her presence. Why? When my husband was home, my son would talk to me casually. But as soon as my husband went on a business trip, our conversation ceased. He would only leave his room for meals and baths, passing by me as if he couldn't hear me at all. I tried consulting with my husband again, but there was no sign of improvement in our relationship. As time went on, my son eventually became a college student. What should we do from here? Are you talking about Sean? Yes. Before we knew it, we've come this far. Sean is an adult now, not a child anymore. I know, but according to my husband, we shouldn't worry too much. Sure, someday he'll leave the house and be on his own. But I still wanted to improve our relationship. Our conversation about it ended inconclusively. No matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't understand why he might hate me, so I decided to ask my son directly. Is there something troubling you? Huh? Why are you asking all of a sudden? We haven't talked much recently, and I thought maybe something happened. My son sighed heavily and answered as if it were a hassle. Can you just not talk to me? I have nothing to say to you. You don't have to say that. Then, my son said something shocking. I've hated you from the first time we met. What? I don't like the way you look down on people. I was speechless after being spoken to so harshly. Then, my husband, noticing something was wrong, came over. What's going on here? Nothing. That can't be true. What did you say to her? I just said I hated her. What's so bad about that? You said what? Apologize to her. My husband spoke sternly, trying to admonish our son. However, our son began to talk back even to him. Why should I? Are you being fooled by this woman? Don't say such nonsense. My son continued to resist without backing down. If you're going to say that, then I'll just leave. That's fine, right? Hey, where are you going? Wait. He left the house. And with that, my son's rebellion became even more intense. Aren't you going to chase after him? No. Let's just leave him be for now. He'll come back eventually. Despite the harsh words, he was still my dear son. I wanted to chase after him, but I chose to wait, believing he would return soon. However, my son did not come back the next night. Unable to stay put, I went outside. He's not around the house, is he? Regretting my impulsive decision to come out, I then saw my son emerging from a house. I quickly hid behind a pole. What's he doing here? I stayed hidden until he disappeared into the darkness. The house he came out of was the piano school he had attended years ago. It was already night, but I had unwittingly ended up on a familiar path. It had been years since I last came here. However, I couldn't understand why my son had come out of there. Where have you been? I immediately went home and asked my son. Huh? Why do I have to tell you that? Here, I decided to test the waters. I thought I saw you around the piano school earlier. Piano? At that moment, his voice seemed to falter slightly. What were you doing? I wasn't at such a place. Why would I go to Aaron's place? His response made me sure that I hadn't mistaken him. Sean had quit piano lessons as soon as he graduated from elementary school. Even though some time had passed since quitting, the fact that he was calling her by her first name instead of using teacher indicated they hadn't just met yesterday or today. I see. Seemingly annoyed, he muttered under his breath. Just shut up, will you? Although I had already been under a lot of emotional strain, his words still shocked me. Just then, my husband came home at the perfect time. Seeing his father return, Sean retreated to his room. As Justin entered the living room, he had a somewhat exasperated expression. Did he say something to you again? Huh? You can tell? It's obvious just by looking at your face. So, what happened? I told my husband about what our son had just said to me. Then, Justin gently placed his hand on my shoulder and spoke kindly. I'm really sorry. Why are you apologizing? Because I wasn't there to listen properly today. It's partly my fault. I've been away from home a lot on business trips. But it still hurts to hear things like that. As I murmured softly, my husband was about to go talk to our son. Wait a minute. I grabbed his arm to stop him. Why stop me? I have to talk to him. Just listen for a moment. I held him back because I had remembered something. It was about him coming out of the piano school. I wasn't mistaken, and I tested him by asking. He called her name. Piano? He used to go to lessons in elementary school, right? Yes. I don't know when it started, but they seem to be on good terms. But why would he? I can't figure out the reason either. Maybe we should just watch the situation a bit more. I see. Maybe that's a good idea. I wanted to know the reason badly. Perhaps that was causing him to treat me so terribly. My wish was to solve this problem and improve our relationship with our son. I really want to make things right. All right. I'll help out too. Let's work on this together. Yeah. Although I said this to my husband, I couldn't help but wonder if there was something more to it. So I decided to look into Aaron's background. For now, we decided to just keep an eye on our son. But when things go bad, they really go bad. On my way home from work, disaster struck. I was hit by a car that ran a red light while I was crossing the street, resulting in a traffic accident. Are you okay? Sorry for this happening. What are you talking about? I'm just glad you're safe. But my legs. I had severely injured my back, resulting in spinal cord damage that left my legs completely immobile. Does that mean you can't walk anymore? I nodded silently. I ended up being hospitalized for about half a year. You're busy with work, and now this. It's not your fault. But you have a business trip tomorrow, right? I'm fine, so you should go back and get ready. Well, yes, but I'm really okay. All right. He left the hospital room. I bit my lip, trying hard not to cry. It was the next day. My son came to visit me in the hospital. How are you feeling? I can't move my legs, but otherwise, I'm okay. Then, my son gave an unpleasant smile. Can't walk, huh? Now you're useless. You don't have to say that. Maybe Dad will divorce you now. Not that I would mind. His cruel words continued. I didn't talk back, just taking his words like a punching bag. As Sean seemed satisfied, he began to leave the hospital room. Just before exiting, he turned back to me. Well, do your best. I'm not up for caregiving. All I could do was watch his back as he left. Alone in the hospital room, I lay down and silently shed tears. I had never felt such pain in my life before. Then, as if on cue, Justin came to visit. I have something important to talk about today. Something important? I tensed up, remembering Sean's words and fearing that Justin might bring up divorce. However, what he said next was surprisingly reassuring. I've been thinking about buying a house. Our current one isn't barrier-free, and I know it's been tough for you. Maybe, but to do all that for me. It's okay. Of course, there was one thing on my mind, Sean. What does Sean think? I did talk to him about it, but he seemed disinterested. We hardly have proper conversations these days. I see. While I was hospitalized, Justin had been looking for a new home. It was true that our old house was inconvenient given my wheelchair. Building a new house would have taken too much time. 2 weeks later, Justin visited and revealed he had already purchased a house. I've bought the house. Already? There was a model home in a nice location. I decided on it right after the viewing. All this for me. I just want you to live comfortably. Thank you so much. I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Upon my discharge and arrival at the new home, I was amazed. It was more impressive than I had imagined. Nice house, isn't it? Yes, it's wonderful. And this house even has a basement. A basement too. More surprises were in store. Oh right, there was something else. He went to the back of the room and returned. Could it be? Yes, it's an electric wheelchair. Even something like this. With this, you can move around more freely. I can't thank you enough. I did this on my own. I hoped this would lessen the burden on Justin. Although I couldn't do everything right away, I was determined to try my best to go outside. From that day on, I began to take care of myself. Sean, however, did not seem pleased to see me becoming more independent. Move out of the way. You're such a nuisance. Then, he kicked my wheelchair. That's dangerous. You're useless, don't just sit around here. I'm trying to lessen the burden. As if that changes anything. There's no need to be so cruel. Your very existence is a burden, what's the point? I attempted to return to my room, but he blocked my way. Where do you think you're going? I was just going back to my room. That's okay, right? I'm not done talking yet. I have nothing more to say to you. I had hoped for an improvement in our relationship, but I realized this might be the end. My patience had reached its limit. Running away, huh? If that's what you want to think, fine. I don't understand why Dad married someone like you. He kicked my wheelchair again and returned to his room upstairs. For a while, he stopped talking to me, and I felt a bit lighter. I'm sorry, but I have another business trip scheduled. I understand. I feel bad, especially since we haven't resolved things with Sean. It's okay. I'll contact you if anything happens. With that, Justin left for his business trip, and once again, it was just Sean and me at home. Sean started leaving the house more often as soon as Justin was gone. I became anxious, wondering when he would return. But on that day, Sean did not come back until after I had gone to bed. When I woke up the next morning, I could hear noises coming from the second floor. It seemed Sean had returned while I was asleep. But there was no sign of him leaving his room. Today marks the start of work. I was determined. Having become disabled, I thought I had no choice but to quit my job. But I was recognized for my past work and was told that I could continue working remotely. I turned on my computer to start working. That's when I realized something. My mouse was missing. Where did I put it? I remembered that computer peripherals were stored in the basement storage. Knowing Sean would likely ignore me if I asked for help, I decided I had to retrieve it myself. The electric wheelchair really does make things easier, though it felt like a hassle. I didn't want to postpone it and headed straight to the basement. The basement was accessible through a door behind the staircase. Slowly descending the slope, I reached out for a box in the back. As I placed the box on my lap and prepared to head back up, I heard someone coming down the stairs. Thinking Sean had finally woken up, I saw him descending the slope. "What are you doing down here?" "Just looking for something." A part of me felt a bit happy, thinking he might have come to help. "Then, I'll help you." With that, he closed the door. Shocked, I froze for a moment but soon realized this was a bad situation. Not only was I trapped, but it was also incredibly cold. Checking the wall-mounted thermometer, I was astonished to see it read 28 degrees. "What are you doing?" "Open up." "Huh? Why don't you just stay here for a while?" Despite my efforts, the basement door wouldn't budge. Originally, I was in an electric wheelchair, which limited my mobility. It's cold." "Well, of course, it is. The temperature right now is 28 degrees. Why are you doing this?" Then, my son began to laugh loudly. "I've been irritated with you for a long time." "What?" "Acting like a mother. Maybe you'll turn into a mummy staying down here?" "What are you thinking?" "I'm going on a trip for 3 nights and 4 days. So, just hang in there until I get back. Please, let me out of here." "All right." After waiting for a while, Sean returned with something in his hands. The door opened slightly, and through the gap, he threw in 2 bags of snacks and a bottle of water. "Is this supposed to last me?" "That should be enough." "Well, this is. Goodbye. For now. Just open it." My desperate cries did not reach my son. Only the sound of his footsteps fading away could be heard. I was left with no choice but to despair. It seemed he wasn't seriously intending to end my life. I had to figure out how to survive for 4 days. I need to find a way to deal with this cold. I frantically searched for anything useful. After rummaging through cardboard boxes, I found an old blanket. With no other options, I covered myself with it to stave off the cold. With no way to call for help, I waited. 4 days passed before Sean returned from his trip. And then, the stage was set for a grand retaliation. I secretly watched Sean's movements. Let's see what happens now. Sean headed towards the basement, cautiously opening the door. What the heck is this? An odd smell wafted from the basement, noticeable even from a distance. He entered in a panic. "No way, is she dead?" I should never have listened to that person. In the back of the basement, there was something wrapped in a blanket. Sean probably thought it was me, but it was a trap set by me and another person. "What are you doing there?" Sean immediately turned around. "Why are you here?" "I wonder why." "Don't mess with me." That's my line. You shouldn't do such things without being prepared for the consequences. "What? Mocking me?" Just as Sean approached. "I never thought you'd go this far." "Dad, why are you here? Weren't you on a business trip?" "I came back because I couldn't reach you. Then I found you had locked her in the basement." "That's right. I was rescued by Justin. It happened just yesterday. To deceive our son. My husband and I filled a bag with kitchen waste to make it seem like it was decaying. And used a blanket to resemble me. This ruse was a success." "So, who is this a person you mentioned?" "Huh? Did I say something like that?" "Don't play dumb. I don't know what you're talking about." That's when I realized I might know who this person was. Could it be Aaron? Sean stepped back, a clear giveaway. "You mentioned coming out of the piano school before, right?" "Yes. They must have been sneaking around behind our backs. Then let's find out for sure. Huh? You must have her contact information, right? Let's invite her here. Wait a minute. Just call her. Sean contacted Erin. Soon after, the doorbell rang. Sean went to greet her, and they both headed to the basement. Now, let's hear an explanation. It was natural that she couldn't meet my eyes in such an awkward situation. I just wanted Dad to be happy. What's so great about her? You really don't understand anything. What do you mean? I chose Tiffany because she accepted me as I am. And you think Erin would be any different? Why go through all this? Did you think I'd fall for such a woman? I thought we should hear it straight from the person involved. Wait. Since she's here, let's ask Erin. Caught off guard, her eyes widened. Everyone's gaze focused on her. I was using Sean. I only said to scare you a little, not to lock you in the basement. I had heard about Erin when Sean was attending piano lessons. It seems she had been inviting him out even before I met him, despite his refusals. After we got married, he started to dislike being dropped off and picked up. That's why I decided to do the drop-offs and pickups myself, to keep an eye on things. I did use Sean, but I never wanted to be with him. What? I just couldn't stand to see the person I liked being happy. So, you wanting to be with Dad was. I'm sorry. That was a lie. Then, I remembered something I had researched before. Being together was never possible. What do you mean? Because Erin is married. That's a lie. Is that right? Erin nodded silently. It wasn't surprising Sean didn't know. Erin's husband was also working away from home. Then, what was all this for? Seeing Sean's dejected look, I whispered something to my husband. I see. That explains it. What are you talking about? You liked Erin, didn't you? What? Sean looked down but quickly raised his head. That's not true. Thinking about it, a lot of things don't add up. You said it was for me, but there were other ways to handle this. Erin, you knew about Sean's feelings, right? Yes. It's such a shame. You were just used for revenge. After all I've done for Erin. Sean slumped to the floor, overwhelmed. Justin placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. And Sean's expression seemed to soften a bit. Perhaps he was hoping for some sympathy. We, as his parents, had decided to be strict with him. Even if he was our precious son, to correct his behavior. It's unfortunate, but you're an adult. Being deceived, even if it was the case, doesn't excuse your actions. So, leave this place right now. Wait. Isn't that too harsh? Harsh? Think about what you've done before you say that. Such a woman. I had no intention of holding back either. What you did to me could be considered a crime of confinement. There was also a risk to my life. That's why you panicked, didn't you? Tiffany is right. Do you think we can live with someone dangerous like that? Sean might have thought it was a trivial matter, but this is a serious crime. It's a sufficient reason to kick him out. Then let's give him a choice. Either we call the police or he leaves this house. That's a good idea. So, what will it be? We decided to give him a choice, but there was never really any option for Sean. Fine. I'll leave. All right. But I'll continue to pay for your tuition until you graduate. Everything else, you're on your own. And don't ever come back to this house. You don't have to go that far. Do you want to be reported? Hearing that, Sean looked down and fell silent again. Erin. What should I do now? He was seeking help from Erin this time. However, her calm demeanor was gone, replaced by anger towards Sean. You really did something unnecessary. Who told you to go this far? I never thought you'd be this foolish. But I just did what you told me to. Did what I told you. I never said to commit a crime. What's that supposed to mean? You tricked me first. An irrelevant argument was unfolding before us. If you two want to fight, do it outside. It's just a nuisance here. Exactly. If you keep making a fuss, I'll really call the police. Calmed by my voice, the two of them stopped arguing and left the house. I might have thought it was a bit too much to kick out our son. However, what he did to me was a crime. Sean needs to understand the gravity of his actions and learn to live rightly. This was the right thing to do, wasn't it? Yes. You don't need to worry about it. But still. It's fine. If we coddle him, he'll never truly become an adult. You're right. Sean moved out and started living in an apartment. As Justin said, we continued to pay his tuition, but he was earning his living expenses himself. It seems he had to juggle multiple part-time jobs. Once, Sean called me. I'm sorry for everything. Could you lend me some money? What? Why should I do that? You chose to leave this house. So that's how it is. What are you talking about? It's clear now. You care about Dad, not me. If that's what you're going to say, then don't contact me again. As if I'd ever contact you again. He hung up the phone. Sean would be turning 20 this year. This should have been the best time of his life. Not being able to make memories of his youth is something he'll have to accept. As the consequence of his actions. Erin, thereafter, moved away quietly. Where she is and what she's doing now, I have no way of knowing. Finally, things have settled down. Yes. Let's keep supporting each other. And so, our life as a couple began anew. Surely, happiness will continue in our lives ahead.